In 48 hours, a Harvard genius went from saying, "I do" to a billionaire, to lying dead with a bullet in his head. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about love, money, and murder in the digital age. Picture this, March 15th, 2024. San Francisco's most exclusive blockchain conference. Dr. Marcus Kane, 29 years old, Harvard Business School graduate, stands at the podium presenting his research on cryptocurrency security protocols. In the audience sits Catherine Whitmore, 73, worth $4.8 billion, founder of one of Silicon Valley's first AI companies. What happened next would set in motion a chain of events that law enforcement officials are still trying to understand. Let me ask you something before we continue. Do you believe in love at first sight? Because according to witnesses, the moment Catherine laid eyes on Marcus, something electric happened. But was it love, or was it something far more calculated? Marcus Kane wasn't your typical venture capitalist. Born in small-town Ohio to middle-class parents, he'd clawed his way to Harvard through scholarships and sheer determination. But here's what his friends didn't know. Beneath that polished exterior, Marcus was drowning. $300,000 in debt, not from student loans as everyone assumed, but from high-stakes cryptocurrency gambling that had spiraled beyond his control. Catherine Whitmore, on the other hand, had built her empire from nothing. Starting her AI company in 1983, when artificial intelligence was still science fiction, she'd transformed herself from a Stanford dropout into one of tech's most reclusive billionaires. She rarely appeared at public events, preferring to manage her vast fortune from her Napa Valley estate. So when she showed up at that blockchain conference, heads turned. Witnesses described their first interaction as intense. Catherine approached Marcus after his presentation, asking detailed questions about digital security protocols that seemed oddly personal. One attendee later told investigators, she wasn't asking about general security measures. She wanted to know specifically how someone might protect themselves from financial predators. Within days, Marcus and Catherine were inseparable. Private jet trips to tech conferences, dinners at restaurants where the waiting list stretched months, exclusive access to Catherine's world of billionaire eccentrics. Marcus's friends expressed concern. The age gap was staggering, 44 years separated them. But Marcus seemed happier than they'd ever seen him. What they didn't know was that Marcus had been receiving mysterious payments during this time. Bitcoin transfers labeled Project Motherlode appeared in his accounts weekly, each one worth thousands. When questioned by investigators later, his Harvard classmates admitted they thought Marcus had finally struck it big with a crypto investment. They had no idea he was being paid to investigate the woman he was dating. For months after that first meeting, Marcus proposed. Catherine said yes immediately. The wedding was planned for her Napa Valley estate, a $500,000 intimate ceremony with just 12 guests. Curiously, none of Marcus's Harvard friends were invited. When they asked why, Marcus claimed there were scheduling conflicts. The wedding day arrived. July 20th, 2024. Their vows were unusual, focusing not on traditional promises of love and devotion, but on digital legacy and shared technological futures. Catherine's wedding gift to Marcus was unprecedented, access to her personal cryptocurrency wallets worth over $200 million. Marcus's gift to Catherine was more mysterious, something he called his Harvard network, which he promised would revolutionize her AI research. The first 24 hours of their marriage appeared normal. They toured Catherine's wine collection, hosted a small dinner for the remaining wedding guests, and spent time in Catherine's home office where she showed Marcus her latest AI projects. But according to security footage, Marcus's behavior began changing dramatically on their second day as newlyweds. Phone records show Marcus made over 50 calls and sent hundreds of encrypted messages during their final 24 hours together. He was accessing multiple cryptocurrency accounts from different devices, sometimes simultaneously. Catherine, meanwhile, was making her own secretive calls late into the night, conversations that security cameras captured but couldn't record due to sophisticated audio jamming technology throughout her estate. At 11:47 p.m. on July 21st, just 36 hours after their wedding, Catherine's security system recorded her leaving the estate in her Tesla Model S. She wouldn't return until 5:23 a.m. the following morning, wearing completely different clothes and covered in mud. At 8:15 a.m. on July 22nd, 48 hours after their wedding ceremony, Catherine called 911. "My husband is dead," she told the dispatcher, her voice unnaturally calm. "I found him in the wine cellar." Someone shot him in the head. When Napa County Sheriff's deputies arrived, they found Marcus's body positioned in what investigators would later describe as an execution-style killing. A single gunshot wound to the back of the head, no defensive wounds, no signs of struggle. The positioning was so precise that several officers initially suspected professional involvement. The murder weapon was nowhere to be found. Catherine's explanation was simple. She'd woken up, couldn't find Marcus, and discovered him while looking for a specific vintage wine for breakfast. She claimed to have no knowledge of the gunshot that neighbors reported hearing around 3 a.m., the same time she was mysteriously absent from the estate. Detective Maria Santos, a 20-year veteran of violent crimes, took lead on the investigation. Her first theory seemed obvious: suicide. A note was found on Marcus's laptop, typed but not signed, expressing regret over financial decisions that hurt the people I love. The note mentioned his crushing debt and fear of disappointing Catherine. But Detective Santos had seen enough suicides to know something was wrong. The gunshot angle was impossible for self-infliction. The weapon's trajectory suggested the shooter stood directly behind Marcus, firing downward from a height advantage. Most importantly, the digital evidence made no sense. Here's where this case takes its first shocking turn. Digital forensics revealed that at the exact time Marcus was supposedly dying, he was actively online, accessing Catherine's cryptocurrency wallets from multiple IP addresses simultaneously. Not just one or two accounts, dozens of them, each requiring complex security protocols that would take hours to breach. The lead forensic analyst, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, had never seen anything like it. Either Marcus Kane was the most sophisticated hacker in history, she told the investigation team, or someone was using his digital identity to create an alibi while committing murder. Let me pause here and ask you something. Based on what you've heard so far, who do you think killed Marcus Kane? Comment below with your theory. Was it Catherine? Was it Marcus himself in some elaborate scheme gone wrong? Or was there someone else involved that we haven't met yet? The investigation deepened when Catherine's whereabouts during her 3-hour absence became the focus. Her Tesla's GPS had been disabled, but cell tower data suggested she'd traveled approximately 60 miles east into the California wilderness. When questioned, Catherine claimed she'd been unable to sleep and decided to visit her late father's grave in a remote cemetery. Investigators checked. Catherine's father had been cremated and his ashes scattered at sea. The break in the case came from an unexpected source: Marcus's Harvard classmates. Feeling guilty about keeping secrets after his death, they revealed the Bitcoin payments he'd been receiving labeled Project Motherlode. Financial forensics traced these payments to an anonymous wallet that had been funding Marcus's investigation into Catherine's background for months. What Marcus had discovered was chilling. Catherine Whitmore had been married before. In 2019, she'd wed Richard Blackstone, a 55-year-old investment banker, in a small ceremony eerily similar to her wedding with Marcus. 72 hours after their marriage, Richard was found dead in Catherine's swimming pool, officially ruled an accidental drowning. The insurance payout was $50 million. The investigation had been closed within weeks. But Marcus had found inconsistencies. Richard Blackstone was an Olympic-level swimmer in college. He'd competed in triathlons well into his 50s. The idea that he could accidentally drown in a shallow pool defied logic. Moreover, Marcus had discovered that Catherine had changed her will 3 times in the week leading up to Richard's death, each revision increasing his beneficiary status. Armed with this information, investigators reopened the Blackstone case and discovered something that would change the entire direction of their investigation. There hadn't been just 2 suspicious marriages in Catherine's past. There had been 5. Between 2015 and 2024, Catherine Whitmore had entered into short-term relationships with 5 different men. 3 had died under suspicious circumstances. 2 had disappeared entirely, only to resurface years later as wealthy individuals living under assumed names with completely new identities. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. When investigators tracked down the 2 surviving victims, both men told a shocking story. Catherine hadn't been trying to kill them, she'd been trying to save them. The first survivor, who agreed to speak only under condition of anonymity, revealed that he'd been on the run from organized crime figures who were pursuing him over cryptocurrency debts. Catherine had staged his death, provided him with a new identity, and set him up with enough money to disappear forever. "She saved my life," he told investigators. "I was going to be tortured and killed. Catherine gave me a way out." The second survivor told a similar story. He'd been involved in financial fraud that had attracted federal attention. Catherine had helped him fake his death and escape prosecution in exchange for information about other financial criminals she was tracking. Suddenly, investigators were facing two completely different versions of Catherine Whitmore. Was she a serial killer who murdered men for their money? Or was she some kind of vigilante protector helping vulnerable people escape dangerous situations? The answer would come from an unexpected source: artificial intelligence. Catherine's company had developed predictive algorithms capable of analyzing human behavior patterns and calculating optimal intervention strategies. FBI digital crime specialists discovered that Marcus's death had been predicted by these algorithms weeks before it occurred. The AI had analyzed Marcus's financial desperation, his growing debt, and his increasing desperation, and calculated a 73% probability that he would attempt to steal Catherine's cryptocurrency holdings. The question became, had Catherine used her AI to predict Marcus's criminal behavior and protect herself, or had she used it to plan the perfect murder? The investigation revealed that Marcus had indeed been planning to steal from Catherine. Security footage showed him installing unauthorized hardware in Catherine's computer systems during their wedding weekend. His plan was sophisticated: transfer her cryptocurrency holdings to accounts he controlled, fake his own death to avoid prosecution, and disappear with her fortune. But something had gone wrong. Instead of escaping with billions, Marcus ended up dead in a wine cellar. Detective Santos faced a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. Every piece of evidence supported two contradictory theories. Either Catherine was a serial killer who had finally been caught, or she was a victim defending herself against an elaborate cryptocurrency heist. The trial of Catherine Whitmore began 18 months after Marcus's death. The prosecution argued that she was a calculating serial killer who used her vast resources and technological expertise to murder men for financial gain. They pointed to the pattern of deaths, the suspicious timing, and her unexplained absence during Marcus's murder. The defense painted a completely different picture. Catherine was a misunderstood billionaire who had spent years using her resources to help vulnerable people escape dangerous situations. Marcus hadn't been a victim. He'd been a sophisticated financial predator who had attempted to steal billions from a woman he'd manipulated into marriage. The key evidence was Marcus's digital activity during his death. Prosecution experts argued it was impossible for Marcus to be online while being murdered, proving Catherine had used his digital identity to create an alibi. Defense experts countered that the sophisticated nature of the cryptocurrency theft attempt required ongoing monitoring, and Marcus had automated systems running his criminal enterprise even as his plan collapsed around him. Public opinion was divided. Social media exploded with theories. Some saw Catherine as a black widow spider, luring young men into her web before devouring them. Others viewed her as a misunderstood genius who had been unfairly targeted by a system that couldn't comprehend her methods of helping people. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Their verdict would send shockwaves through both the tech industry and law enforcement community. But before we get to that verdict, I need to tell you about the evidence that emerged after the trial ended. Evidence that would change everything we thought we knew about this case. 3 months after Catherine's trial concluded, a time-delayed email appeared in the FBI's evidence system. It had been programmed to send automatically 90 days after Marcus's death, regardless of any other circumstances. The email was from Marcus Kane, sent from beyond the grave. In it, Marcus confessed to an elaborate scheme to fake his own death and frame Catherine for murder. He'd been planning this for months, using his cryptocurrency expertise to create digital evidence that would make Catherine appear guilty while he escaped with her fortune. The plan was intricate: stage his death in a way that would point to Catherine, then resurface years later with a new identity and billions in stolen cryptocurrency. But something had gone catastrophically wrong. The email revealed that Marcus had discovered Catherine wasn't his only target. Someone else was hunting him, someone who knew about his criminal activities and was planning to eliminate him before he could execute his scheme against Catherine. The real killer, Marcus wrote, was his own cousin David Kane, who had been funding Marcus's lifestyle and cryptocurrency gambling in exchange for information about wealthy targets. When David learned about Marcus's plan to disappear with Catherine's fortune, he realized his cousin had become a liability. David had killed Marcus to prevent him from exposing their family's criminal enterprise. The revelation sent investigators scrambling. David Kane was arrested 6 months later, trying to board a flight to a non-extradition country with over $40 million in cryptocurrency. When confronted with Marcus's posthumous confession, David broke down and admitted to the murder. Catherine Whitmore was completely exonerated. The charges against her were dropped, and she received a formal apology from the Napa County District Attorney's Office. But the damage to her reputation was severe. She retreated even further from public life, focusing on her AI research and her quiet work helping people escape dangerous situations. The case led to significant changes in how law enforcement investigates cryptocurrency crimes and digital evidence. New protocols were established for analyzing complex financial fraud cases, and Catherine's company worked with federal agencies to develop better tools for tracking digital assets in criminal investigations. But perhaps the most lasting impact of the case was the question it raised about artificial intelligence and predictive algorithms. Catherine's AI had accurately predicted Marcus's criminal behavior weeks before it occurred. If technology can predict human actions with such precision, what does that mean for concepts like free will and criminal justice? Today, Catherine Whitmore continues her work in artificial intelligence from her Napa Valley estate. She's never remarried, though sources close to her say she continues to help people in desperate situations escape dangerous circumstances. She's funded new research into using AI for victim protection and has donated millions to organizations that help people build new identities when their lives are threatened. Marcus Kane's death remains a cautionary tale about the intersection of technology, greed, and desperation. His Harvard classmates have established a scholarship in his name, though they acknowledge the complicated legacy of someone who was simultaneously a victim and a criminal. David Kane was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During his sentencing, he expressed remorse for his actions, but claimed he'd been trying to protect his family from Marcus's increasingly dangerous criminal activities. The judge wasn't sympathetic, noting that David had chosen murder over simply reporting his cousin's crimes to authorities. So what can we learn from this extraordinary case? In our increasingly digital world, the line between victim and perpetrator is becoming more blurred. Technology that was designed to protect us can be turned against us by those who understand it better. Trust, especially when massive wealth is involved, is more fragile than ever. The case also raises uncomfortable questions about justice and perception. For months, public opinion was convinced that Catherine Whitmore was a serial killer, a narrative that nearly destroyed her life even though she was ultimately innocent. In an age of instant communication and social media judgment, how do we protect people from false accusations while still holding genuine criminals accountable? What shocked you most about this case? Was it Catherine's ultimate innocence, Marcus's elaborate criminal scheme, or the family betrayal that led to murder? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your insights often help me understand these complex cases from different perspectives. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that notification bell. Next week, I'll be covering another case where cutting-edge technology collided with ancient human motivations for devastating results. Until then, remember that in our connected world, the deadliest weapon might not be a gun or a knife. It might be the device you're holding in your hand right now.